Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and the Washington football team has finally released its first official depth chart. Of course, we got to break down every little bit of it. Who's the starters? Who's deep on the bench? What is everybody's roles? Like a DeAndre Carter, is he actually going to start as our punt returner? All of that type of stuff. We're going to bring all of that down. And of course, this is the official depth chart for the Week 1 matchup against the Chargers. This will change throughout the season, whether it be through injuries or somebody getting better. For example, like a Dax Milne, who's literally the last receiver on the depth chart. Maybe he emerges as our starting slot somewhere in the middle near the end of the season over Adam Humphries. But again, we're going to discuss all of that and more. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I'm also working on a preview versus the Chargers, the top 5 matchups you need to watch out for, the weaknesses, the strengths, and what my final prediction for the game will be. So be on the lookout for that as well. And again, I'm trying to get these fantasy leagues going. I may not do as many this year as I did last year, but I definitely at least want to do one for the channel members, the Friday people, maybe a couple of more. We'll see. But without further ado, let's get it. All right, so the first official depth chart is in. Starting with the offensive line, you have Charles Leno as your starting left tackle, with Cornelius Lucas technically as your backup swing tackle, left or right if there's an injury. Sadiq Charles is technically your backup right tackle, right guard, but he's really like third on the depth chart for both of those. Wes Schweitzer is your backup guard. Cornelius Lucas is your backup tackle. Sadiq Charles comes in only if one of those guys gets hurt as well. Then Eric Flowers is your starting left guard over Wes Schweitzer. Wes Schweitzer was your starting left guard the majority of the offseason. I guess Eric Flowers came and won that job. He earned that. Chase Roulier is your starting center. Tyler Larson as your backup center, again over Keith Ishmael, who's on the practice squad. Brandon Sheriff, of course, is your right guard, and Samuel Cosme is your right tackle. And running the ball to the right side is going to be dominant. Samuel Cosme, I think, is already going to emerge as one of the best run blockers in the NFL this season early on. Only thing holding him back from being a Pro Bowler, All-Pro, is him working on his technique, especially in pass protection, his footwork, all of that type of stuff, not lunging forward. Once Samuel Cosme gets all of that down, with how much of a freak athlete he is, again, the second most athletic offensive tackle drafted into the NFL since the 1980s, the sky's the limit. But you have Samuel Cosme, who's a mauler. Brandon Sheriff, you already know how he does. Chase Roulier. So if we ever just need 1 yard, run it to the right side. I love Eric Flowers, and I'm not too optimistic about Charles Leno, but at the very least, when in doubt, we have Cornelius Lucas off the bench to replace him. And he was solid at left tackle last year. I think he was pretty underrated. So that's the only reason I'm not worried about the Charles Leno situation, because when in doubt, if he's messing up, you got Cornelius Lucas to start. And then Charles Leno can be a backup. But still, that left side, cool. That right side, boy, that is an angry, aggressive, physical right side. And then your tight ends. And I love this. Logan Thomas is, of course, your number 1. John Bates is, of course, your number 2. Samus Reyes is your 3rd tight end. That speaks wonders because Ricky Seals-Jones is a veteran. You already know what you get out of him as far as receiving, blocking, and all of that. The fact that Samus Reyes is above him is great news. That shows that he's done something. That he's gone out there in training camp practices, preseason, more than likely training camp practices from things we haven't seen recently, that he's gone out there and earned that job. And he's not one of the guys that barely made the roster. They figured out they needed 3 tight ends. Samus Reyes was that 3rd tight end. And then when they were looking for the last few spots on the team, that's how Ricky Seals-Jones got in. But Samus Reyes was pretty much a roster lock before we got to those last couple of days of trying to figure out who and who will not make the team. Again, which has me excited, because if Samus Reyes makes the team, he's the 4th guy. You're like, oh, maybe he's still really raw. I'm happy he's here. But the fact that like he's above a seasoned veteran and Ricky Seals-Jones shows how far Samus Reyes has come. Then your starting wide receivers are, of course, Terry McLaurin as your X, Adam Humphries in your slot, and Curtis Samuel as your opposite outside of Terry McLaurin. De'Ami Brown is technically not the direct backup to Terry McLaurin. That's just how they design it in depth charts. Technically, a backup receiver is a De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, and I guess DeAndre Carter over Dax Milne. That's interesting. Dax Milne was definitely one of those last guys to make the roster. He is literally at the bottom of the wide receiver depth chart, but they really like him. And we're going to get to special teams soon, but that's one of the main reasons he made this team. But it's interesting that DeAndre Carter is the direct backup slot receiver to Adam Humphries. If Adam Humphries were to get hurt, DeAndre Carter will be our starting slot technically, even though I feel like they're going to throw a combination of Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, and Curtis Samuel out there as much as possible. They're just too dynamic not to have on the field at the same time. Then, of course, your quarterbacks are Ryan Fitzpatrick, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen. And then, of course, your running backs are Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, and Jared Patterson. I'm super excited about Jared Patterson. I'm so happy he earned this roster spot. I thought once we signed him as an undrafted free agent and I went and really just dove into his film, I was like, oh, yeah, he should definitely make the roster over Peyton Barber. But then throughout the offseason, before the preseason especially, we were hearing all of this about Peyton Barber getting more snaps with the ones and the twos, and the franchise still likes him. And then Jared Patterson came and balled out in the preseason, had a couple of drops in that last preseason game against the Ravens, but even in that game, he has such great pass protection. That's just not a guy you lose. He can do everything. He can pass protect, he can catch, he can kind of run routes, and he's a great pure running back. He's definitely our best pure running back on roster right now. I'm not saying he's better than Antonio Gibson, because Antonio Gibson is an athletic freak. I mean, literally bigger and faster than Christian McCaffrey. We just got to get him there mentally. But all of the mental stuff that we're hoping Antonio Gibson gains, Jared Patterson already has it, with the patience, the vision, knowing where to go, when to go there, setting up blockers, cutting, all of that type of stuff. And then him being so short, it's hard for linebackers, really anybody on the defense, to see him behind our really tall offensive linemen. So once they finally see him, it's usually too late. He's already going through the hole. But again, I'm really, man, Jared Patterson, Samus Reyes, they made it so far, man. And the fact that Sadiq Charles is like fully healthy, he's not injured after 3 snaps, is crazy in itself. And then the defense, of course, your starting defensive line is Chase Young, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, obviously. But then it's interesting that your backup defensive linemen, like, they're gonna play in games. It's not like Chase Young and Montez Sweat play 100% of the snaps every game, ever. That's never going to happen. So expect to see quite a bit of James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill. Maybe Shaka Toney in pass rush situations, obvious pass rushing downs, like 3rd and long, maybe like 2nd and very long. Then you'll probably see a Shaka Toney out there. Otherwise, if it's like 3rd and 4 and we want to take Montez Sweat or Chase Young off the field, you're going to see a lot of James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill. Casey Toohill is also really interesting because he's been hurt a lot lately in the offseason, and they still went with him over a William Bradley King, a Daniel Wise, and all of these other guys. So that's interesting to keep track of as well. They really believe in that guy, so as long as he's healthy, we're good. Then your linebackers. Now this one is really interesting because I don't know how much to believe in this. Is Jamin Davis really our starting middle linebacker? I doubt it. First of all, you have Cole Holcomb and John Bostic as your outside linebackers. John Bostic cannot play outside linebacker. He's literally only the quarterback of the defense. He's the brains of the defense. That's it. On the field coach. Literally, that's his niche. You don't really depend on him in the run game. You definitely don't expect him to stack up against a tackle or a guard and shut him to make a play in the run game, to stop a running back at the line of scrimmage. You definitely don't expect him to go out there and cover tight end, slot receivers, and maybe even just a regular outside receiver or running back. You don't want that. So him playing outside linebacker is out of the question. So we just cannot read too much into this depth chart. I don't know why they put Jamin Davis at middle instead of Will, because I think that's how it's going to be until Jamin Davis is really ready for sure to take over that Mike linebacker spot. He has all of the athleticism in the world. Coverage, we saw some improvement in run stopping going from that Patriots game to that Bengals game. So maybe he's taking another leap forward and we just haven't seen him because he sat out in that preseason game against the Ravens. They sat pretty much all of the starters and even some of the second stringers. So who knows, maybe Jamin Davis is further ahead than when we've last seen him, which could be safe to assume because again, the jump he made from the Patriots game to the Bengals game within just 1 week was almost night and day. So maybe he's made a considerable amount of progress moving forward, but I'm still not entirely too sure if he's ready to start at Mike linebacker. But maybe this means, even though we're technically a base 4-3 defense, we're going to have 2 linebackers on the field the vast majority of the time, maybe even more than last year, because now we have Cameron Curl and Landon Collins. We're going to talk about that. If you want them both on the field at the same time, neither of them are really true free safeties, so you may need a Bobby McCain on the field with them as well. That's 3 safeties. You have to take away a linebacker. Also, as much as we love Benjamin St-Juste, about to talk about that soon as well, if you want him on the field at the same time as William Jackson and Kendall Fuller, move Kendall Fuller to the slot, you have to take a linebacker away for that. And then if we want to run this 5-2-4 that everybody's raving about, you have to take away a linebacker for that as well. So we're going to only have 2 linebackers on the field a lot. And I'm saying all of that to say that maybe Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb, you're starting Mike linebackers, and they just have John Bostic at the top of the depth chart to show like he's that next guy up maybe. I don't know. Still confused why Jamin Davis isn't just the outside, John Bostic isn't the Mike. Maybe they mean that Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb are ready to officially start when we have 2 linebackers out there. Then, of course, David Mayo is your backup outside linebacker. He's easily our best run-stopping linebacker on the team right now. And then he's also a pretty decent special teams player, but he's a complete liability in coverage. I mean, even more of a liability than John Bostic, which is hard to believe. Then you have Khalid Hudson, really like a hybrid safety linebacker type of guy. So if anything, I feel like he's more so an outside linebacker, like a backup will linebacker that Jamin Davis as of right now. But they have him as a Mike linebacker. We'll see. Then your corners. Of course, Kendall Fuller, William Jackson are your starters. But Benjamin St-Juste, I think, is going to play a lot. Even if he technically doesn't start snap 1 against the Chargers, he's going to play starting level minutes. I'm just assuming because he's just too talented. The most importantly, he's just too ready. He's shown that he's ready to cover a Keenan Allen. He's out here covering Cam Sims, Adam Humphrey, and Terry McLaurin. So I think he can definitely hold his own. And even then, I think William Jackson is going to be the one that's mostly tasked with covering a Keenan Allen because William Jackson is our #1 outside corner, and I project him to play like a top 7, top 5 corner in the NFL this year, especially behind this defensive line. But there's also going to be situations, since Benjamin St-Juste is our biggest corner easily, has the most length, best vertical, all of that type of stuff, and he's secretly very agile. You can have him cover a Keenan Allen, let William Jackson cover the other faster receivers, and again, Kendall Fuller in the slot. That's where he's best at. And then it's interesting that Torrey McTyer is the immediate backup outside corner. If you want to say that William Jackson is your starting outside corner on one side, Benjamin St-Juste is your starting outside corner on the other, and Kendall Fuller is your starting slot, Torrey McTyer is right behind them as the backup. Then you have Darryl Roberts and Troy Apke. Darryl Roberts is really versatile, so I'm not surprised that they kept him. He can play free, strong safety. He can play slot corner, outside corner, all of it. And then Troy Apke is your special teams ace. He's probably our best special teams player on our entire team. Rivera even spoke about how other teams have to game plan stopping him on special teams. So he's impactful in that way. That's why he made the team. And of course, he's a backup corner instead of safety because he made that transition from safety to corner. Not expecting him to be even really a decent corner, honestly, but at least he's not the worst corner of all time like he was the worst safety of all time. And then you're starting safeties, man. Really interesting. Landon Collins and Cameron Curl. Landon Collins is your strong safety. Cameron Curl is your free safety. Again, like I keep telling y'all, I don't really see Cameron Curl as a free safety. I love him as a slot corner. I love him as a strong safety, a Buffalo nickel. He can play some cover 2. I like him in cover 2 a little bit. I love him in cover 3, love him in cover 4. But if we ever want to run single high free safety, cover 1 type stuff, Bobby McCain is clearly your guy. And it's not even close with anybody else. Not even close. Nobody else on this team even has remotely the same amount of range as Bobby McCain. And it's also interesting too because Bobby McCain, a lot of people feel like he's a better slot corner than free safety, mainly Pro Football Focus. But back to Landon Collins and Cameron Curl, I do expect them to play on the field alongside each other a lot. Now, if we want a true free safety out there, like I've already said, you're going to have Landon Collins, Cameron Curl, and Bobby McCain on the field at the same time. But I think they're going to try to make it work with Cameron Curl and Landon Collins out there. But I really want Cameron Curl as close to the line of scrimmage as possible making plays. Maybe not as close as like a Landon Collins, who I feel like should really be another linebacker on this depth chart, honestly. But I do want Cameron Curl out there just do whatever you need to do to make a play. Be that X factor, that secret weapon, that important chess piece that you never know what Cameron Curl is doing any given play. He could be covering the running back, literally man covering the other team's tight end, covering the slot receiver, out there running cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, man coverage, whatever. So I want him on the field at all times doing something. Whatever it is, just do something. Keep him on the field. But again, I don't trust him as a rangy free safety. He's one of the smartest defenders on our team, but he also lacks athleticism in a way, and that's literally the only thing holding him back from being a free safety. I think he would be an elite free safety if he just had the athleticism behind him. And then of course DeShazer Everett is your backup, just safety. There's an injury, a strong safety or free safety, he steps in. He's not a pure strong safety or a pure free safety. He's not can bang with offensive lineman type of strong safety, and he's not a rangy free safety. He's just kind of in the middle, kind of like a jack of all trades, injury anywhere. He's a dependable guy, but not an electric guy, not a big playmaker. So that's solid depth right there, veteran presence. And then your special teams, of course, Tress Way is your starting punter. Dustin Hopkins is your starting kicker for now. Of course, your starting placeholder is usually going to be your punter like 99% of the time. That's Tress Way. I don't know why the Cowboys had Tony Romo do it that one time. He messed it up in the playoffs. Was there like an injury or something? I never even checked back on that. I was so young and just remember laughing at the Cowboys for that. I don't even know what happened with that situation. Cameron Cheeseman, your recent late round draft pick, replaces Nick Sundberg as your starting long snapper. Now the kick returner and punt return is very interesting because on kick returns, you have DeAndre Carter and Jared Patterson starting. I like that. Jared Patterson showed you enough with that. Literally, I think that was his only kick return in the NFL ever. That one preseason game against the Bengals where he ran it back for 36 yards looked electric. That one play was enough for him to be our starting kick returner, and I'm excited. I don't think it's a lack of depth, a lack of options. I think Jared Patterson is just impressed that much between that Bengals preseason game and what he's been doing in practices. It's not like those preseason games are the only times these coaches get to see what these guys can do. I'm assuming Jared Patterson has also been consistent in practice. He was electric in the preseason game, but consistency and dependability is important for a returner as well. I'm assuming he's been dependable and consistent in practice. But Jared Patterson's interesting because I think he only returned like 8 kicks in his college career, something like that. So now he's only returned 9 kicks in his life or something like that. I believe somewhere around there. Some really low number, but he looked really good and like a natural doing it. And then also very interesting is that DeAndre Carter is your starting punt returner. And that's the main reason he made this team. Granted, he's the backup slot to Adam Humphries, but I don't think they plan on playing him on offense much at all. Again, Adam Humphries just starting slot, but at the same time, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, and Terry McLaurin can play out of the slot if you need them to. So really, we don't even need depth at slot like that, honestly. DeAndre Carter and Dax Milne are on this team for their special teams ability. Dax Milne is your backup punt returner. DeAndre Carter, as soon as we signed him, I just assumed he was going to make this team as your starting kick returner and punt returner, which ended up happening. But I'm excited to have DeAndre Carter back there on punts. Probably the most dependable and electric guy we've had returning punts since the really good Jamison Crowder year, not the year before he left where he was hurt and muffing punts. And then on the kickoff returns, we have DeAndre Carter and Jared Patterson. I'm excited, man. I think we'll finally be able to flip field positioning on the returning side as well. On the kickoff coverage side, we've been excellent, mostly because we have the best punter in the NFL in Tress Way. But now we're actually going to be able to flip field positioning and make things easier on our offense and our defense in the return game as well. I'm super excited. I don't think people understand how much of a difference that's going to make. I mean, literally the difference between wins and losses. Field positioning, time of possession, all of that type of stuff. Red zone efficiency. If your starting field position is consistently better this year than what it was last year, you're expected to make more points because you're expected to travel less distance to get to the end zone, to get within field goal range. It's a domino effect, and I'm super excited about it. But now my biggest worries on this entire roster are Dustin Hopkins with his kicking. Catches fire late in seasons, but we don't have time for that this year. This schedule is ridiculous, especially in the middle. I mean, if anything, the end of the season is the easiest part of our schedule. But division games are never easy, so I don't know. Also, big mystery with the whole Landon Collins, Cameron Crowe situation. I'm assuming Bobby McCain is going to be on the field with them at the same time. But then if you have Bobby McCain on the field, that means you can't have Benjamin St. Juste, Kendall Fuller, and William Jackson. But, I mean, that's a good problem to have. It's not like we're like, man, I don't know who's going to play this or do that. We just have so many guys. We don't know who's going to be out there when and where. So it's good problems to have. And then Jamin Davis, man, I mean, are you ready to start at Mike linebacker? Of course, some people are concerned about our backup defensive end depth because, again, I warn you, these are not just backups that only come in if there's an injury. The way defensive line works, unlike a lot of secondary players and even linebacker, they don't play the entire game at all. They're never expected to. So James Smith-Williams and or Casey Toohill are going to play every game this season, even with Chase Young and Montez Sweat fully healthy starting every game. That's just how defensive line depth works. So these guys will play versus like a Dax Milne and maybe even a DeAndre Carter who may never see the field on offense. So edge rusher depth, I'm not necessarily worried about it, but it is a little mysterious. We'll see. Our organization loves James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill. They've been talking them up for the past 2 years, so we'll see. And then offensive line, I'm excited about the offense in general. My biggest worry on offense is literally just Charles Leno Jr. He looked better against the Bengals than he did against the Patriots, but the Patriots had a better defensive line. So I'm not exactly sure if that was the direct result of Charles Leno getting better or performing better, or was that just because the Bengals D-line isn't as good as Matthew Judon in that Patriots defensive line. But other than that, I'm really solid. I'm not too worried about this team. I think we have great depth. I can't wait to see Sammis Reyes out there. I think he's actually going to get some considerable time against the Chargers. I don't expect us to throw him the ball, but if we need somebody to block, Sammis Reyes is our most physical blocker on the team, Rivera said, one of them, and that's including offensive line, not even just out of the tight end group. And I think he's already our best blocking tight end. Even though his technique isn't great, he's so physical. He moves guys 5 yards away from where they want to be, even with bad hand technique and foot technique. So we'll see. Now, he has whiffed on a couple of blocks in the preseason, but overall, I'm excited about his blocking potential. And again, I think he'll contribute early on. If we're going heavy run sets, goal line, I can expect to see Sammis Reyes in this game against the Chargers, not just on ice, and we don't see any Sammis Reyes till like week 8. Again, I don't think we throw him the ball anytime soon, but he's going to be out there blocking at the very least early on. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you agree or disagree with a lot of my points? Do you have your own points that I didn't bring up that you want to discuss? I'll definitely will be in the comment section reading and replying to those. Also, please like this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. And as always, man, I appreciate all the support, man, big time. Shouts out to everybody that donates to the channel. Really appreciate y'all. And of course, a special shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. Man, I'm excited. Let's get it. I'm out.